the Nonprofit Podcast, powered by Donorbox.
When nonprofits save more money, they can make an even greater impact. We love helping you help others, and I recently learned of a nonprofit from my hometown, St. Louis, and how they are helping other nonprofits just like yours from all around the country when it comes to cost savings and the bottom line so they can do more good in their communities. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Cara, fundraising coach at Donorbox. We are here each week with practical actions you can use today to increase donations and take your nonprofit to the next level tomorrow. Today, we're talking about some really innovative uses for a backlog of really terrific, ready-to-use merchandise that come from overstocked warehouses and merchandise returns. We'll learn more about how some of the nonprofits put them to good use and some actionable insights about how to build relationships with corporate donors that nonprofit leaders, founders, and fundraisers can surely replicate on any level. I'm so glad our special guest, Travis Laws, is with us today. He's an expert in helping nonprofits benefit from really terrific, unused items and has an insight into this overlooked tool that can play a crucial role in supporting your nonprofit's mission and is a sustainable way to keep on top of resources for the greater good. Welcome, Travis.
Cara, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you today.
Well, I'm just learning more about this movement, this reverse logistics. And from what I understand, it's the process of kind of taking these customer returns and giving them new purpose. And it's not a term I've really been familiar with until recently.
Reverse logistics is a big term. It's anything moving backwards through the supply chain. So customer returns are a huge part of it. IT, asset recovery and destruction are a big part of it. Return to vendor, anything that's not flowing forward is reverse logistics. But I think most folks have more experience with that consumer return than anything else. And that's something that's continuing to grow.
But you're helping some nonprofit partners, right? So tell us a little bit more. You're the connector. You have this special role of connecting the dots between businesses and all this merchandise and getting it into some really terrific organizations who can use it. So tell me a little bit more about how you've seen nonprofits benefit from using this.
You bet. So Winwarehouse is a nonprofit ourselves. We're a 501c3, and our mission is to connect nonprofit organizations with corporate excess inventory. And so we take advantage of a part of the tax code that allows an enhanced benefit for certain donations of inventory. And then our job has been for years to take these bulk and by the truckload, multiple truckloads donations, and then break it down and make it accessible to the smallest of nonprofits and quantities that they can handle and that suit their need. When I started this work in just over 20 years ago, almost everything that we saw was a result of somebody's forecast that had gone wrong. They bought too much, they discontinued something, that packaging changed, and they had pallets of this and this and this left over. But as time moved on, we got to see more and more of the problems that our donors were looking to solve revolved around things that had been returned to them, or that they were returning to their vendors, and that they just didn't have a place to go with them. And so as we leaned into that space and learned more and more about reverse logistics, it became apparent that there really is a need for the circular economy to play a big role into that so that we're not throwing all these things away. And what better way than to put them in the hands of nonprofit organizations that are providing impact into our communities.
I love it. And when you talk about your donors, a lot of times nonprofits will think of donors as individuals, but you're dealing with different kinds of donors.
We're dealing with corporate donors, and that can be from the biggest Fortune 500 company to somebody who's, got a business selling omni-channel through Amazon or Walmart.com and doing some side work, to try to enhance their income. But, anybody that's in business to sell something inevitably has some of that product that they don't know what to do with. And so they've got limited disposition that they can do with that. They can throw it away, which does nobody any good. They can liquidate it for pennies on the dollar, which solves their space problem and maybe provides them a little bit of a monetary recovery. But we lean heavy into the fact that you can both solve your problem and do some good in the community and recover quite a bit through tax relief by donating it. Winwarehouse kind of acts as what some people would refer to as a 3PL or third-party logistics provider. Not as much in a traditional sense, but we handle all of it, break it down, and make it so that we can distribute it to our nonprofit members.
Can you tell me a story of how you've seen some of your nonprofit members use this merchandise?
Oh, there's tons of stories, and one of my favorite to tell is that we had some very large evaporative coolers, and they're basically blowing almost like a mist across some area to cool it down.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were contacted by a member in Los Angeles that has a guinea pig rescue. The LA Guinea Pig Rescue takes in animals and cares for them and finds them foster and permanent placements, just like we'd think of as other pet rescues.
Yeah.
And they had a water situation where they had over 200 of them coming in. They had sufficient storage for them in some converted horse stables that were outside. And so they were very worried about how they would deal with the Los Angeles heat. And we're thrilled to find a couple of these big evaporative coolers that they could get for just our administrative fee on it was just pennies on the dollar, what they would have had to spend locally or through traditional sources. And so they were able to take in this big project of, like I said, over 200 guinea pigs and make sure that they could care for them and keep them safe from the temperatures when it got really hot in LA.
That's an amazing application because you have the cost saving to the nonprofit who had a limited budget. They wouldn't be able to probably afford these retail. It minimized the waste. You had them sitting in your warehouse, and it helped these guinea pigs. I love that. That's a really great way to show that you're the connector between those unused goods and then those who benefit from them. That's really great. So, Warehouse, tell me a little bit about the warehouse. How did it start and what's your role?
You bet, Cara. So Winwarehouse was founded in 1992. It was a retirement project by my father, Clinton Laws, who had seen firsthand just how this tax benefit could help nonprofits. And he wanted to be that connection to help nonprofits and to empower them. We're really an odd nonprofit. And Cara, I bet we're the only one that you talk to that don't actively do fundraising.
Yeah, you might be. Yeah.
We exist on our program revenue. And what we do is we charge a small administrative fee for the products that we distribute. It's always at least 3/4 off of retail values. I'm very proud. I was able to work with my dad for about 10 years and very proud to continue on his legacy and still growing and going. In the time that I've been here, we bought the warehouse where we had been renting a small amount of space and continue to grow. And right now we have 150,000 square feet under roof. Yeah. So we've got lots and lots of products and capacity for very large donations, and then capacity for distributions from, people walking into a showroom and picking up one item that they need, or we have an e-commerce component so you can order one item at a time on our website and either pick it up or have it shipped. And then we've got some bulk arrangements where when we have large quantities of things by the pallet or even by the truckload, we can do that. And increasingly, we're doing some, virtual distributions where we have a donor in an area. If they're in California, it doesn't make sense for them to ship it all the way to us and for us to ship it to another member, another nonprofit in California. So we're increasingly matching more and more of these things up so that they don't spend as much time on the road and burning as much fuel.
And because you're a nonprofit, then the companies and business partners can donate their overflow and receive those charitable benefits.
Absolutely. We have to be a little bit careful. There's part of the tax code that makes this beneficial is that organizations that receive merchandise from us use it in accordance with their mission and don't exchange it for money.
I see.
Now, but for the most part, we're going to ask our members to use the things that they have in accordance with their mission. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I can see how you'd be very attractive to those companies. You're allowing them some opportunities for corporate social responsibility to really make a difference and making sure that their products don't end up in the landfill, which is really great, right?
Absolutely. And, the landfill or the secondary market too. Online sales has really made the secondary market so much more accessible to a lot of people. And so you wind up competing with yourself on some things. And with a donation situation, we've had cookware, and when it goes into programs for people exiting homelessness or something like that, that's not your customer. That's not somebody that was going to go out and buy high-end cookware. They're just somebody that needs a pot or a pan and to get their home and their life restarted. So
what a treat it is to get unused, high quality goods that they can use that brings value into their life too.
we hear that all the time, Kara. People are very excited to, there's things that they find. They're like, this wasn't even on our radar because we didn't think we could afford to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a local nonprofit that has like a maker space, and they do lots with reclaimed wood and reclaimed hardware and deconstruction of buildings, etc. And we had a drill press that this thing I think was about 30,000 pounds, just meant for 3-shift work and manufacturing and very, very heavy duty. We reached out to this nonprofit and said, hey, is this something you? And they're like, oh my gosh, we've got 20 applications for that, and we never dreamed that we could have something that nice. So we wound up just arranging a drop ship for that because obviously it was a bear to load and unload to start with.
Yeah, you can't put that in the trunk of your car, right?
No, not very easily.
No way. Working with these large companies or your donors certainly cannot come without challenges. What are some of the challenges you've faced in managing the merchandise that comes from these companies and ends up in your warehouse?
One of the biggest challenges that we deal with on a daily basis is product data. We may receive just a little bit of information on what the item is and what the value is that they're writing off, but we may not know product specifications, things that really matter to the people that would want to receive them. And some items are pretty self-explanatory, but others have lots of variables and variations that make a big difference. Photos, to gather photos for all these is another thing. So we've gotten a little more sophisticated. We're leaning into some automation on a lot of that to try to be able to scale it. It sounds very simple to just write a description and take a picture, but when you're talking about thousands of items, that's thousands of hours. So we've invested in a machine. When we bring things in, they go across a belt and they're weighed and measured with lasers, so we know exactly what the package size is on it so that we can provide accurate shipping information. We're constantly looking for better ways to gather that product data so that when you look on an item on winwarehouse.org's catalog, then you know exactly, yes, that's the item that I'm going to be receiving.
There's so much behind the scenes work that you just take for granted when you go to a website and look at a product. You're really putting a lot of work into managing the selection and distribution process. What's another example of a way that you have really seen your products in action?
So we've got a donor that is a distributor of safety shoes and boots. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of extra every year that they donate to us. It seems like for over 20 years, we've received a very generous annual donation from this footwear company. And so we're known, especially locally, for having a nice variety of those. And employment programs just love that because when they're trying to help someone to get a new job, they need to show up with the proper attire, the proper, sometimes safety goggles, sometimes clothing, almost always some kind of shoes, especially if they're in some kind of maintenance or manufacturing position. Local nonprofit was very thrilled. Steel-toed shoes and boots can range from $145 to $200 a pair. Our fees on those are a straight $25 a pair regardless. And so they were able to show their grant maker that they were serving 6 clients for the cost of 1 by leveraging their resources to get what they need. And we've actually, with a number of these employment specialist agencies locally, we've got a voucher program worked out where they send us a voucher and say, this person's going to be by on Tuesday and this is what they can get, and direct bill us for our admin fees. And then our staff goes to work to help these folks that are in some kind of recovery, whether they're a reentry program or just trying to find employment, finding them shoes that they like instead of picking them, being handed them. They're finding things that fit them, that fit their style, and there's a lot of dignity in being able to choose what you're receiving, and then getting them on the road and encouraging them in their new jobs is something that's a lot of fun for our staff.
Oh, I can imagine that would be such a huge blessing. Your nonprofit members, how many do you have? How do they find out about you? Is there a typical nonprofit that comes to you for merchandise?
Cara, is there a typical nonprofit?
No.
We serve a lot of different agencies, and there are thousands that are registered, and we serve hundreds every year. In the past 10 years, many of our donations have been what's called MRO, maintenance, repair, and operations. So people who are in the facilities management business, if you've got a building, we can be a huge blessing to you. And so we see a lot of, whether it's a church or a school or any kind of agency, if you've got a building, we know that there are supplies here that that we can save you a lot of money on. We've increasingly gotten more and more toys, and we've distributed millions of dollars of toys. And that's generally kind of a seasonal thing where we put together packages. We call it Operation Toy Deploy, especially through COVID, where there were these events that it was harder to gather together, and agencies were putting together these affordable Christmas things that allowed people to, again, select toys for their child rather than just here's a bag for a 6-year-old girl. Those kind of programs really enjoy getting a big variety and a big lot from us. So really, the diversity comes from what you need the products for. It's, animal rescues are big, schools, churches, but anybody with a building or anybody who's sourcing things for programs can find something from us, I'm sure.
We talk a lot about donor stewardship and just kind of keeping a relationship going. Do you have some processes and practices in place to stay in relationship with these corporations and these businesses so they continue to think of you and then the impact that you make in the bigger nonprofit world?
Well, it's all about communication, right? I mean, it's staying top of mind, and we're able to go a step further in the reverse logistics problems that businesses are having. We've been able to work our way into relationships where we become part of their process. So we've got a number of donors. If they are processing a return that they know they're going to donate, whether it's a price point decision or whether it's a vendor decision or, maybe it's just they're going to donate all of it, they will actually generate labels where they have their customers return it directly to winwarehouse. So we're saving them thousands in fees to accept, receive, process, repackage, all the things that they would have to do. They can just digitally make that donation by having a label there. And so we've gone from the early days of receiving only truckloads and some pallets to now it's not unusual for us to receive, several hundred boxes a day and processing those returns. And so the company, again, that's 2 less trips that it had to take and gas that it had to use and people that had to touch it as well. So it's much more efficient, much more friendly to the environment, and ultimately it gets it into the hands of people who can use it that much faster. So when you become a part of their process and a part of that solution, it's very easy to stay in good contact, good communication, and make sure that we're looking at each other's pain points and really becoming partners with them to find ways to help each other rather than just asking for generous donations.
Oh, that's terrific. I love that so much. Are you able to tell them the stories about people who received the materials that come from your warehouse?
Yeah. Oh, and that's a reason for the success stories on our blog. And we do a newsletter as well that goes out to them. And there's a real cool feeling and a real cool vibe around those conversations when we talk to them about, for them, it was a problem. It was something to be solved. It was something to be cleared so that they can focus on forward logistics and things that make their company money. And so these things that were in the way are suddenly somebody else's lifeline. And that's just a real nice moment to be able to discuss with people. And folks in those kind of jobs really like knowing that they're a part of helping people that need it.
It's a whole picture. Unused merchandise that was either sitting alone in a warehouse or not helpful to anyone. At that point, going back into the hands of people who can use it, helping nonprofits maximize their budgets by purchasing these things that they would normally be buying at retail prices with just a few administrative costs, so giving them some cost savings.
Absolutely.
If somebody wanted to know more about you, Travis, or winwarehouse, how could they find more information?
Well, the easiest way would be to visit our website, winwarehouse, WIN warehouse.org. If you're not-for-profit organization or you represent one, just click Join Now. There's a free level of membership. And the website's full of, the catalog has a great selection of the items that are available. As I mentioned, the success stories will tell you a lot of type of people that we serve and what they're doing to improve our communities. Of course, there's contact us links all over the website so that you can reach out if you'd like to hear directly from a member of our staff.
Well, Travis, thank you so much for your time today. And I really appreciate all you're doing for St. Louis community and the broader nonprofit community as well.
Thanks for having me on. We're always just so thrilled to tell our story, especially just to connect with nonprofit organizations who are making our world a better place. And so you and I are both in the business of helping to empower them and to help them do their job. So I'm glad to come alongside.
Thank you. And thank you, our listeners, for choosing to spend a little bit of your time today with the Nonprofit Podcast. I hope you've left with the confidence to take a small step today that will make a big difference tomorrow. Be sure to click the download button on your podcast player, then leave the Nonprofit Podcast a review or give it a thumbs up if you're listening to the Nonprofit Podcast on YouTube. Your review is really a great way to help others find us. You're here to help others. We're here to help you. So until next time, stay inspired.
That warm feeling when you help someone, it's not just happiness, it's fulfillment. And we believe it should be available to everyone, from frontline heroes to first-time fundraisers. Our tools empower you to help others. This is our mission. This is Donorbox, helping you help others.